This podcast is powered by The Plug.
I'm your host, Chardonnay, aka Coco Madame, and I'm so excited to be here. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Hustle Bunny. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Hustle Bunny. I am here today with the wonderful, beautiful Ashlea, aka Trisha, who is the founder of the Colorado Entertainer Coalition. Well, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, me too. I'm glad that you're here. It's always nice to see you. I feel like it's been so long. It has been long, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's been almost a year. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yes. I can't believe it's been that long.
I know. It feels like forever, but not really, you know? Kind of, we're just like in the twilight zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right, Ashlea. So I normally like to start the show with 3 icebreaker questions, just little fun like tidbits. I normally just come up with them off the top of my head. So let's see here. Let's see. First question. I guess I'll go easy on you. Let's see, what's your favorite food?
I'm one of those annoying vegans. I definitely don't proselytize that though. So I don't know. I'll be like a super annoying vegan and say chickpeas.
That's actually not annoying. That's not too terrible. I've been trying to do the plant-based diet, which is hard. It's hard because it gets a little expensive sometimes because you do eat more quickly.
Yeah. I feel that. And
then, trying to stay full, but I feel a lot better. I've been doing that probably now for like consistently 3 months.
Awesome.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you. Let's see. Favorite place to travel to?
Before COVID, my husband and I, we did a lot of traveling, and one of my favorite places I've ever been is Cardiff, Wales. Everyone talks about going to the UK and going to London and Edinburgh and Dublin, but Wales is always left out. Cardiff is a really cool and underappreciated city. I highly recommend it. There are some like really cool castles there, really cool history. It's an interesting place.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. No, I've never even thought about going there, so I'm glad you said that. Once the world is open, I'm trying to travel more again too. It's like I got my passport last year and I was like ready to travel and it just didn't happen. Yeah.
It's the worst.
So let's see. My last question is, remember like when I danced with you, you always wear like the plaid skirt. Are you somewhat like Scottish or anything? Because I remember like guys used to go crazy for that. They're like, oh, like I love this Scottish like vibe.
No, I don't know that I'm Scottish. That is so funny that you said that. I remember it was a schoolgirl outfit and I'll say it was a college woman outfit or whatever, I'll go with that. But it was definitely like an academic looking outfit. And there was this one night that I wore it and I made so much money and then I was afraid not to wear it again. So I wore it so many times, but then it kind of wore off. I don't know that it had anything to do with the outfit. It just like happened to be a good night. And it was a gimmick. It was definitely a gimmick because, it gets tiring talking to customers, and it was so nice to just be able to be like, I am a schoolgirl.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. I love that you asked if I was Scottish, though. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like terrible question, but yeah, I just remember
I love it.
I like loved that, but I was like the same way too. Like I had my money making outfit and I was like, there's so much money in that. Like I should wear it again. But yeah, I like that. And I just remember like this guy was just like totally about like the whole Scottish girl thing. And I think he was like Australian or something. And that was like the crazy thing. He was like a foreigner. So I was like, normally I feel like foreigners can normally tell what when they're looking at like another like, they're like, oh, it's just like very Scottish features or like very like European.
Oh, if I would have known, I would have totally played it up and gone over. I mean, I probably have a terrible fake Scottish accent, but That is
right,
really
right. But I did. I enjoyed the look. I enjoyed working with you. All right. Well, now that we are a little loosened up here, so kind of talk to us about what the Colorado Entertainer Coalition is.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like we're on Zoom and I'm afraid of delays, but I just wanted to also mention that I really liked working with you too. I thought that was a nice thing to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, in 2019, I actually travel danced for a while, and my husband and I settled in Colorado, and I had worked, I don't know, I don't want to give myself too much credit here, but I organized a little bit with a group in New Orleans called the Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers. And they kind of formed in response to a lot of police raids that were occurring in the clubs down in New Orleans. And when I was there, a really big raid happened across many of the clubs in the area and kind of continued to happen for a matter of weeks. And I was super inspired by the organizing that went on down there. And there's one particular person that I just really looked up to and felt, I was like, wow, that, they're putting things in front of city council. They're asking for change. They are making their voices heard in terms of the zoning laws that kind of put all those raids into action. And I don't know, I'm probably not explaining it well enough for anyone to fully understand what was going on down there. But when I got to Colorado, I really wanted to see something like that. I really wanted there to be community. I think that, obviously we deal with a lot of things at work where it's kind of like, well, that's just the way it is. And without a collective voice, it's really hard to make change or to even speak up. I mean, even with a collective voice, it's hard to do that. So that was originally what was really important to me. But I kind of subscribe to this idea of, I think the original way that I heard it, they might not be the comrades you want, but they're the comrades you have. And I kind of apply that to a lot of different things. Like, I wasn't really sure where CEC was going to go. So it was kind of whoever showed up and to our meetings and whatever their interests were, we went in that direction. It's very important to me that CEC is not a reflection of what I personally want and what I personally feel is important, but it's a reflection of the community and what the community feels is important to address. So at this point, the direction we've really gone is the mental health route, and creating resources for all different types of sex workers to access affordable mental health care. And now we're kind of going into the frontier of creating some resources for therapists and other mental health providers to learn to better serve sex workers. I could keep going, so I'm going to stop for a second. I could probably talk for an hour.
I'm learning too, because being a sex worker, a lot of people don't realize that you don't have benefits. You pay to work. You are an independent contractor. You're basically your own business. And like a lot of women and men who get into sex work, they don't realize that, So I think it's like such a good place, especially with like mental health, because dancing or just doing any sort of sex work, you definitely need to have an outlet for your mental health, right? Because it can definitely take a toll on you. You're working long hours, you're constantly kind of putting on a facade, you're trying to make money. Then it's like, well, if you didn't make any money, you kind of think that it's yourself. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, am I not like attractive? Do people don't like me? So it can kind of be like a spiral down towards things. And sometimes like working in that environment, it could be a very toxic environment, not with like the workers per se, but sometimes the customers that you have to deal with, right? Absolutely. They kind of, there's guys that come in, or even with like webcamming or anything, they feel like because of the work that you do, you're not valid, right? Like some of the guys treat you like that, and you're just like, okay, well, whatever. And same thing with like when it comes to like insurance and things like that, it's like hard to get apartment living and things like for people who you don't file your taxes. So I think that's really awesome that you guys like really help with that. So what has been like your experience, like as a dancer traveling to like these different states? Like, do you find that, Louisiana compared to Denver or Oregon or the different places, I'm not quite sure all the places you've danced, but do you find that it's different when you travel? Like, do they treat the people differently?
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting that I would imagine that people have very different experiences in different places. New Orleans was by far my favorite place I've ever worked. San Diego was by far my least favorite place I've ever worked. I really didn't like working in San Diego. And, again, there were people there who absolutely loved it. I mean, I guess it just depends on who you tend to vibe with. I would say Denver is kind of right in the middle. It was like just right in the middle of the spectrum. I think I've danced in like 6 different cities, but, maybe 7. I don't know. But, I also really didn't like Vegas. For someone like me, I did not do well in Vegas.
No, Vegas is a whole nother animal. Vegas, I feel like Vegas, it's like, if you're not doing full blown like sex, it's kind of hard to make your money out there. I've realized that was kind of like my experience, and no shade to anyone who does, but it was just like, oh man, it was kind of hard for me to like hustle out there too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really hard market.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I found that in New Orleans, at least for the way that I tend to work, and I'm sure there are other cities like this as well, maybe Vegas during a different time of year is this way, but I really liked the very fast paced and having lots and lots of different people come in, lots and lots of different opportunities to talk to people. I really don't like having to talk to one person for a very long time. I would rather sell hundreds of dances and have my thighs be super sore than do like 1 hour. I know most people or many people are the opposite and prefer to do like a room. But I really disliked it.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Like, girl, do like the 5 hours in a room. I don't want to do that.
Oh, that's amazing.
30 minutes. I don't want to do, because I feel like, what do you want from me after, from all this time? Like a dance is just the same as like, I feel like doing like a room, but yeah, I'm the same way too. That's how I work. So I'm like, I'd much rather do 100 dances in a night.
I would.
Or like, be on stage 50 times and make money that way compared. That's like my least favorite thing to do too.
I agree.
So how does like the CEC like directly help like sex workers? Like, how do you guys like really reach out and like help those in need? And even kind of like, if they go there, what would they be looking for? Like they're kind of coming in here and they're like, we don't really know, like, we know that you guys are helping us out, but like, what would they go to you guys for in particular?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I would say, kind of backtracking a little bit. So CEC, I remember actually talking to the woman who founded the Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers. They call it BEAR. Mm-hmm. And just kind of checking in with her about how she got started. And she was like, include all sex workers. So that was something that was really important to me. Because I've only danced and done like OnlyFans. I haven't really done other forms of sex work, but it was extremely important to me to not create any type of hierarchy, like the idea, for anyone who might be listening, that some forms of sex work are morally superior to others, and that there's just like some line that can't be crossed. But, obviously that's relative to everyone. And so it was very important that I wanted to include all different types of sex workers. So I think that's the most important thing to understand. Using the word entertainer kind of came from working with a lawyer who was, when I was trying to set up like tax exempt status, that was very concerned that we wouldn't receive tax exempt status, which we do not yet have. I should be hearing back soon, supposedly from the IRS that I've been dealing with for 2 years. But he was concerned that if using anything that alluded more closely to sex work would cause us issues. So that's one of the reasons that originally we use that name. So I think people do get confused and think, oh, it's only for strippers. And that's certainly not the case. What I would say, I think another thing that's really important to me is that we're of, by, and for sex workers. We are sex worker led. And so for that reason, I think it's really important to have organizations in any state or any locality that are led by the constituencies they serve, because many anti-trafficking organizations and other types of organizations see sex workers as victims. And obviously, like, how can we help and how can we reach out? I guess there certainly are people that we help for sure. There are people who come looking for mental health resources and people who come looking for sex worker friendly doctors and STD clinics, or to find community, or to share something really scary that happened and ask for advice and just looking for resources and that type of thing. I guess in my ideological world, I like to think of it more as if people were going to come to us, I would want them to feel like we're not the people that are going to help, but they're the people that are going to be involved. Like, I think it was very important to me. I think in starting the CEC, I never felt like any volunteering I did or any job I had, I wanted to feel purposeful. I wanted to feel like I was making a difference. I wanted to feel like I was contributing. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to me with anyone who reaches out to us and wants to be involved that like of course we have resources we can point people to, but it's really special and important to me that people feel like this is important work. I'm directly involved with this. I had a voice, like I led this project. And that's something that I really want to make available to people. So I guess to answer your question, we do have, one of the things we have is like a sex worker friendly, therapist list. And that is just kind of a list of therapists and providers in, mental health providers in Colorado who we have spoken to and gotten confirmation from that they have an understanding that sex work isn't equivalent to trafficking. The idea behind a sex worker coming to therapy might not necessarily be them wanting to exit the industry and wanting help with that. They're just a regular person who happens to do this work the large majority of the time. And so we've kind of had those conversations with people. So that's certainly a resource we have for people. We're working on something currently with doctors in the area. Mm-hmm. To try to do something similar. That has been a lot more difficult. We've also had like legal rights training. So we have some access to lawyers, sex worker friendly lawyers and accountants. We try to basically reach out to professionals in the community and say, hey, this is what it means to serve sex workers. Do you feel comfortable with us adding you as a resource? Do you consider yourself a safe person? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. There are plenty of people who kind of can misunderstand and want to think, oh, they know all of these things. And we just try to do the best we can and try to find the best people to like point people to. That's been a big part of what we do.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That's very awesome. Do you find it hard to find, I know you said it's hard to find doctors, but do you think it's just kind of hard in general to find just any sort of resources to help with like sex workers? Like, as soon as you say like, oh, this is what it's for, do you find that people tend to not really be as interested?
Yes, absolutely. So right now, as we await, notification from the IRS to receive tax exempt status, which has been a super fun 2-year journey of many phone calls and faxes and emails. Faxes, because that's the thing people do somehow in the 21st century. Okay. Yeah, I remember when I was looking for a fiscal sponsor. So in the meantime, so that we can receive tax deductible donations. And yeah, I would call these. Basically, you have to be sponsored by another nonprofit organization so that they can basically receive these tax deductible donations for you. And that you can then, they take a percentage, like an admin cost, and you funnel money through them. I definitely had people like literally hang up on me. There was a woman, oh my goodness. There was a woman, I forget what it's called. And honestly, I wish I could call it out on this show.
Yeah.
It was we have tried to respond to many of the violent events that have occurred in the Denver strip clubs in the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of detail there, but one of the ways we thought, okay, maybe we can respond to this is seeing if some sex workers want to volunteer with this like gun control group. Mm-hmm. And I called them and kind of explained what we do. I've never had someone be so rude to me. I mean, it was unbelievable. I've honestly thought since then of calling back and just pretending to be a random person and being like the best volunteer they've ever had or something.
Yes.
And then being like, it was me before, you know, just kind of a fantasy.
Yeah.
But certainly, to go kind of on a little bit of a tangent here, to answer your question, we have found one of the things we've been working on, and I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm not used to like anyone giving me this much space to talk. So honestly, thank you.
No, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying I'm listening and I'm learning. And then it's like, I think this is just like all great. Like, I think this is wonderful. I wish like this was around, you know, like a long time ago, right? Because like when you first start in this industry, you don't really have any guidance. You just go in and thinking like, I'm just going to go make money. Like this is like a thing. I have this freedom to do. But then like later on down the road, like you find out like you need help with certain things. You don't realize how pushed under the rug everything is. And that was like the whole reason I wanted to start this podcast as well too, because people always see like this glitz and this glamour and they kind of, I don't know, but I feel like on the internet, like a lot of people have been like trying to glorify sex work, right? Glorify like the stripper lifestyle. Then, you know, people are like trying to make it flashy. But it's like in reality, there's like this whole other side that you don't realize you have to deal with, you know, and then how people treat it. And then like as soon as people treat you and like you realize like these interactions with these different people come about, you know, because, you know, me and Kelsey, we've had dinner before with like a group of just a group of friends of people, you know, boyfriends, friends, girls, and they'd be like, oh, like I would never hang out with a dancer. I would never hang out with a stripper. Like that's just like the lowest of the low. And I'm like, you don't even like if I told like you've been hanging out with us now for all this time and then you're having such a good time. But as soon as I tell you like I'm a stripper, like I have no, you know, validity to you anymore, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is hard out here for us. It's even, you know, and like the longer that you're in the industry, it's harder to get out. Just because you get, number one, it's like with resumes and things like that, when it comes into like actually getting like a real job, it's like, oh, well, there's like this 2-year gap on your resume. Like, what were you doing? You know? Or like getting housing. Like if you didn't file your taxes as like a dancer, like, well, who are you? How are you supposed to like, you know, verify your income, like different things like that. So I no, talk as much as you want because I feel like it's like people, you know, even myself, like it's good to hear like these things, and actually understand and like help people understand. And it's very seldom that you get other people trying to help, especially when such like a niche industry, you know. And I think that sex workers tend to really help our communities and like help each other because it is such a small and very I don't know, it's different, I should say. It's different and we need to help each other. So I am here. You can talk as much as you want. I am here for it. I am listening. I am learning. That's like my biggest thing is I love to listen. I love to learn. And I feel like our listeners definitely want to hear what you have to say, you know? So yeah. I think all that is awesome. I'm sorry, like that lady was a bitch to you. Fuck
oh man.
you know, it's just like it's the worst feeling, you know, when you get treated like that. Yeah, I've had the experience. Me and my partner were looking for an apartment, and we went to like one place, and I could kind of tell, like, as soon as like you tell them what you do, like, oh, like you know, independent contractor, but like, what kind of work do you really do? And it's like, do you have to get into like that much, like, you know, detail? And you know, of course you know, when you just like catch a vibe of something. So we didn't go with that place because that was just too much and it was just too awkward. And I was like, I don't want a landlord who's already judging me upon what I'm doing. Right. So we left that alone. So it's been a weird uprising year. I feel like sex workers are really uprising in Colorado, and like really trying to make a stance and a name for themselves. So how do you feel about the club scene in Colorado? Have you felt safe? Do you feel like the clubs out here are good to their dancers? Like, do you feel like they treat you well?
I would say, I would answer that question by saying I really feel like it's, in terms of the experience that I have had. So I danced in Philly, I've danced in New Orleans, Denver, Vegas, Phoenix, and San Diego. I think that's it. And Yeah, I would say to me, I would say New Orleans to me, and everybody's experience is different. I'm sure there might be dancers from New Orleans who completely disagree, but I felt like the bouncers were really, really on top of things. For example, in New Orleans, in Denver, I would say maybe it comes in second. I think the bouncers do a really wonderful job. I think the management tends to take things like reasonably seriously. Again, at least in my experience, I know everybody is different. And I know depending on like who you even are at work, you're going to be likely treated differently by the management. Yeah, I think I would say that that's my experience. I would say in San Diego, I know you're not asking about that, but that one to me was the worst. I thought the dancers were treated very poorly. Again, I also only worked at one club there, so I probably can't speak for all of San Diego, but.
I understand. I understand everyone's experience is different. And my clubs down, around, because I actually started in North Carolina, down south. So I really enjoyed the clubs down there just because I felt safe. I felt like the bouncers were always on your side. I felt like the customers as well, too, had like an understanding of like, okay, you're in a strip club. We're not doing all this extra stuff. Like, they just kind of had, and of course, not every night was like a perfect night with like perfect customers, but for the most part, I think like the customers were pretty like, normal. I mean, because like I said, the bouncers were just so big and like always there that I feel like they didn't really have a choice but to be like respectful to you.
Yeah.
And even with management, I felt like management was really good. I feel like they always looked out for the girls. And even if like girls were having like a rough night and no one was spending money, they would take money or call their friends in or whatever, and they would, make some girls' night or just like get the crowd going. So, yeah, I completely understand that, trying to think about, Denver is like, it's like a happy medium for me, it's definitely, and I don't know if it's just because maybe like I am getting on to that point where like I'm about to be done with like dancing, and like a lot of like the younger girls are coming. I'm 27. So like, when you get like the girls who are 18, 19, 20 who come in, and it's like a whole different generation of dancers that are coming in. So it is starting to get, for me, I'm starting to just like kind of lose interest in it. Like I said, just because like, I don't know, I feel like it's turning, and after COVID, it could be completely different. But I feel like the scene in Denver just isn't, it's kind of like in between. It's like making a transition, so it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah. And I definitely know what you mean about feeling like you are outgrowing it a little bit. I mean, especially having some space from it for a while because, I haven't been dancing during COVID at all. It is hard to imagine myself back in that environment. At the same time, I do miss having the potential to make all that money. I mean, I do miss it. And obviously, like, I don't want to say, obviously as a dancer, you're not going to be making thousands and thousands of dollars every single day. But that potential, I think, is what brings a lot of people back. There's always a potential. And so that's definitely something for me. I'm like, oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice again.
Yeah, I know it is. It's like nice. And like, that's what I told myself too. And, like I just did my first day back on Tuesday and it felt so weird, cause I was like, oh, like it's been so long since I've been in here, but like, let me just go check it out just to go see. Right. Like you said, like that potential to have money, and it's like cash money is always nice, like just making, even if you make like $100 that night, it's like, oh, like at least I'm $100 richer in hand that if I need that money to like do something or just to have, but I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like, like I'm outgrowing it. And as, I wish we could go out with like a bang and not with COVID. Like I wish I could have left like, when I wanted to, but so do you, I'm going to backtrack here myself. So you said, do you ever see yourself going back into the club scene?
I just applied to grad school for next fall. So
congratulations.
I've heard back good news from one. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple, but certainly if I go back to school, I was just talking to the program that I did get into. the woman on the phone, she was very nice. And that she just said, do you have any questions about the program? And she was like, well, the thing is about tuition, you can always do work study. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be insulting. But in my mind, I was like, I think I'd rather like dance one day a week and make like a lot more than, I don't want to insult anyone because that's, for some people, that really might be the best option. And, you do what you have to do. But like, having been a dancer, it's hard, or other type of sex worker that might make a lot of money. It's hard to imagine doing like menial labor and spending many, many hours doing it, for very little payoff.
Yeah.
I do think I would go back, if things, and I'm very privileged to be able to say this, like I'm able to wait until I personally feel things are very safe. Obviously not everybody has that choice. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely understand. Yeah. Like I said, I was like, I went back and it still feels kind of weird. I might just like wait until the summertime until like I want to go back,
Yeah.
But yeah, so what kind of was like your journey into dancing? Was it going to college? Like where you're just like, I need that flexibility in my life?
I just wanted money. I just needed money. I think when I started dancing, and again, I won't use any numbers. I just didn't have a lot of money to my name. I don't know what a lot of people consider a lot of money, and I don't want to be insulting, but like I felt I didn't have a lot of money. And I remember I randomly came across this video on YouTube, and I had been watching pole dancing videos, and there was then one stripper kind of was on the autoplay, and she was like, yeah, if you don't do this, this, or this when you're at work, you won't even make $800 that night. And I was like,
wait.
Like, you can make $800.
Like, let me play that back.
I literally drove, like the next day. I was at the time living I'm from Baltimore. I was living in Washington, the DC area. I drove up to Philadelphia because I didn't want to dance like in my hometown or anything. Right. So I drove up to Philadelphia and I worked that next night. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be doing this now.
Yes. Yeah, that was how I felt. I had moved to North Carolina with like a really shitty relationship, and we ended up breaking up, and like I was out there by myself in like a sense of like, it's not like I could just, pack my shit up and just be back in Colorado, right? It was like one of those things, like, I'm going to prove myself. I'm not going to go back without just like at least giving myself a try to like succeed out here. And I did. I was like working like 2 jobs. I was like in school, and I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. And then me and my best friend, we were waiting tables at a point, and I was like, dude, like, let's just go. Like, there's a club. Like, let's just go. I don't, both of us aren't from here. Like, you're down here for college. So, like, let's just go. So we started off as cocktail waitresses, of course, like lingerie shot girls. And then like the house mom was like, give it like a week and you guys are going to be dancing. And she, like, no lie, like after that Friday, like a guy had asked me how much it was for like a dance. And it was like, I was like, no looking back, cause like the amount of money that I made off of just like one guy, I was like, this is like unreal, so.
It's, and that's the interesting thing about sex work is like people, or one of the many interesting things, it's an equalizer in a lot of ways. It is a way that many different types of people, I'll just say women, but obviously lots of different people can make a lot of money very quickly. So that's another reason I find it very hard to deal with the stigma, because it's a very valid choice. And it's a choice, at least for me, that absolutely and completely changed I was going to say my financial situation, but in doing that, it completely changed my life. Like, I will be paying for grad school because of sex work. And I don't think that anybody can at this point, and it shouldn't have to be that. I hate that it has to be that way. I hate that it has to be like, I feel like when I talk to people, and I don't know if you have this experience, it's like, well, it's different for you because like you're educated, like you're this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's like, it's actually a valid choice for anyone. And why would you take that away from people who are really struggling? Like, okay, it's fine for me because I don't need it. And I like, I have an education. but it's not fine for the people who really need it and like helps them pay their bills. I mean, it makes it palatable for people. So I hate that I even said that in a way. Mm-hmm. Like it makes it palatable to be like, oh, well, I'm going to pay for grad school. No, I mean, if you have a bunch of kids, if you are about to be evicted, it's also like super valid, dude. You know,
it really is. It really is. I had that experience too. When like you start talking to people or customers or whatever, and they're like, well, no, you're educated. Like you shouldn't be here. I'm like, no, I'm smart and I'm about my money. So I am here. You know,
so insulting.
Like, it's completely opposite. So yeah, I mean, whatever you do with your money, you know, you going to grad school and paying it off, like, you know, like that's no different than, like you said, like a girl who needs to pay her bills, you know? So like whatever you do with your money, like the money's still money and it's still paying for something.
Exactly. And yeah, I think I'm going on quite a tangent here, but like, it's really interesting the way that people judge the earnings from sex work in a way that they don't judge earnings from other work. And it is work. It is just a way to like survive under capitalism. And there's like a lot of different ways. I think people see it as this like, oh, well, it's a sellout. Well, number one, I don't agree with that. And number two, there's lots of ways people sell themselves out for their job. And like one of the things that used to make me really mad at work was just people always come back to, oh, well, as long as you're not buying drugs and like that kind of thing. And it's like, well, number one, good thing you're like judging some of the most marginalized people in our society who are like suffering from addiction and likely don't have health insurance or any help.
Right.
And number two, I mean, what would you say about somebody who works on Wall Street and is making millions and millions of dollars a year and buys cocaine? I mean, it has to do with the fact that the way that money was earned. And it's just very frustrating to me. I got in so many arguments in Denver dancing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's completely true because it's, you know, and I think like a lot of sex workers, you know, we are educated, at least within our realm of work that we do and like kind of understanding where society places us. But yeah, it's true. Like, you know, people, because even as like a dancer, right, you see these guys that come in and they're millionaires or like they make good money or even if they're just like whatever you run into. Because like when you really think about it, what class of people can really come into a club and then drop $500 for a 30-minute champagne room? You know, like when people think about that and it's like, well, you're out here spending money on it and you're giving me the money. So like, why are you judging me? Because if I wasn't here, what would you be doing? If I wasn't here and I was walking down the street in my everyday clothes, I wouldn't give you the time of day for anything, you know? So it's like, you need this service, right? Because like, what else are you going to do? You know, so I hate that too. I feel like I argue with people about like sex work and even just the name. When you say sex work, people are automatically like, you just have sex for money. You are just some poor strung out chick on the street selling. And it's like, even if there are girls that are like that, you're still not willing to help them, even though you know that they need help. Not saying that everyone is out there, you know, doing that because it ranges from everything from people going to grad school to girls who are strung out, who do need help, and they don't have like a family member. They don't have a safe place to go. They don't have anyone that they can talk to or feel like they can talk to. And even girls that we've like worked with, it's like going to work for them was like a safe place for them. You know, going to work for them was like, okay, well, even if they were doing, you know, cocaine or whatever, having drinks, at least they know that it was from someone that they could trust, I guess, like in a place that they could trust.
That's a great point. That's like radical harm reduction right there. I love that point.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, we've seen it and, you know, and you do feel for the girls because like there's girls like I know that I'm never going to see outside of the club. You know, I just know like just how life is and just like their stories and kind of where they were going. Like, I know I'm not going to know if they're doing okay. I'm not going to know like what's up with them because they're off the grid, you know? So I think like a place like the Colorado Entertainer Coalition is good for women because like even if they just need someone to talk to, you know, just like someone to feel comfortable around or just anything to help them feel included, you know, because there are still like so many people out there who don't, like I said, like they don't have any inclusion, they don't have anywhere to turn, you know, so
Absolutely. I think it's isolation is definitely real, and we've had sex workers who do full service work who've reached out to us and said, like, I literally I don't know another sex worker. And obviously it's not something that you can openly talk about in many parts of most lives. Like, I don't know for that particular person, but just, yeah, certainly a lot of isolation. And, I've definitely found a lot of wonderful community myself through CEC. So yeah, I think sometimes even knowing things like community organizations exists makes people feel better. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm joking myself, but if you think about, there's plenty of things that events or I can't go to, or organizations I can't be a part of, but like, I'm really glad that they exist. And I hope people who know about CEC but haven't necessarily had the time to organize with us or be involved I hope that they feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you have any upcoming events for the CEC? I know you guys host some things that I've noticed on your page. Do you have any major events headed your way?
Well, we don't have any event. COVID kind of has thrown us for a loop, as I'm sure it has for everyone. I would say the biggest thing so we don't really have an event right now, but one of the biggest things that we're working on is okay, going on a little bit of a tangent because you didn't ask this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Go for it.
So one of the things, and this has to do with what we're doing as opposed to an event, but one of the things that we noticed when we started talking to lots of different therapists and just talking to them about their training and whether or not they felt comfortable working with sex workers, or have they knowingly worked with a sex worker in the past, we realized that it's not a part of formal training for social workers who also do therapy in like clinical settings, or for any type of mental health counselor. It's certainly not a part of their curriculum. And while there are trainings out there, I guess, like, I'm not even sure I want to say that, because I think I found one specifically for mental health providers. While there is that one training that I found, I could be wrong. Maybe there are others. We have done a good amount of research though, and haven't really found any. It's not something that people are trained in. So they might, if you've ever looked for a therapist, you might see on their page, it says LGBTQ friendly, trans affirming, polyamory affirming, trauma informed, that kind of, it's never sex worker affirming or sex worker informed. Although there is one website where that is a choice, a search filter. It's called therapyden.com. They should be paying me because I plug them all the time. But anyway, so we were like, let's create a course for mental health providers, and just to be, they do continuing education. They might do continuing education for like trauma informed work, or for like EMDR, which is like I know a lot about that thing. I guess I'm talking about trauma over and over, but it's also something to do with like eye movement and reprocessing trauma. So there's these kind of weekend courses they can do for 50 hours or so. Ours likely will not be that long. But they have to do a certain amount of that per year to keep their license. And so we were like, let's kind of go on that route. And it was very important for like, what would therapists need to know? So we started polling therapists and sex workers on different surveys on our website and asking them questions. For therapists, like, have you ever worked with a sex worker? Do you have any formal training? What questions would you have, and that type of thing? And then for sex workers, asking, what would your ideal therapy session look like? Have you ever worked with a therapist who made you feel very uncomfortable? Have you worked with a therapist who made you feel uncomfortable? Like, what are barriers you face when seeking mental health care? And so we took these answers, especially from the therapists, and said, okay, where can we start for a course like this? And we've gotten a lot of community input. It was also very important to me and the two other people who are really working this course that it is not a reflection of us in our personal experience, but a reflection to the best extent possible of the community in Colorado. And of course, at the beginning of the course, we do point out, this is a beginning here. Like this is not exhaustive. We've reached out to many community members, and if we didn't have personal experience in one area of sex work, we had someone who did fill out a particular section, but we want to make it very clear that depending on your intersectional identities and who you are in the world, you're going to have very different experiences in sex work. And like, this is just a beginning.
Right.
And so last week we had a little soft presentation where we presented that to sex workers and said, give us your input. And we are hoping to do that again, actually, because we didn't get through the whole thing. So I guess that was a very long answer to your question, but we have our first full presentation of our course coming up in about a little over a week. And so we hope to eventually, be doing that a little bit more widespread, whether it be online or in person eventually. So that was a long answer.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I like that you're so, you are very passionate about what you're doing. So that makes like the world of difference. I like that you're changing the world slowly but surely, opening the world's eyes. And I think that's what we're trying to do, a sex revolution.
Yeah.
So do you have any like closing statements that you want to tell people? Any advice, any sort of, I don't know, anything that you'd love to tell our listeners?
Well, that's a great question. I did want to say that I guess, I don't know if you're listening and you're from Colorado, Wyoming, or New Mexico, I highly encourage you to look up the, Rocky Mountain Sex Worker Coalition. Colorado Entertainer Coalition is a co-founding member of the Rocky Mountain Sex Worker Coalition. And what that is a group of different sex worker run organizations they're all in Colorado, but we encourage people from Wyoming and New Mexico to join us as well. One group is the group of people who collect funding to give direct payments out to sex workers in emergency situations. There is a street outreach group. There is a Black queer space, a Black queer owned sex worker space that exists for people like looking for community, and they are also part of the Rocky Mountain Sex Worker Coalition. Also, other fundraising groups that are sex worker led are part of the group. Am I missing anyone? I'm going to feel really rude if I am. I don't think I am. Okay. But yeah, feel free to find us online and get involved in the capacity that it might make sense for you. I know people are very overburdened right now, but if that's something people are interested in doing.
Yeah. And I think also too, like that can definitely help take the edge off. I know people are super burdened right now, but even if they had some sort of help, with just anything, just anything to make them even feel like they have someone to talk to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. And where can we find more information about the CEC?
Yeah. You can go to coloradoentertainercoalition.org or Colorado Entertainer Coalition on Instagram. We also have a Twitter, but those are probably the best two places.
Yeah, same. I have Twitter and it's a mess to maneuver.
Yeah. It's like, look at this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ashley, it was a pleasure. And I'm glad to have you on my show. Finally, I know I'm even glad that you got back to me. I was like I remember you had told me like you were running an organization or you were part of one. And then I totally forgot who was running the page. Because then I had saw like I was like, oh man, like, there was like another girl on there that I'd seen. And I was like, is it her? Or like, who am I talking to?
She is my like one of my right hand peeps.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure. And thank you. Until next time, you guys, we'll chat with you soon. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Hustle Bunny Podcast, Twitter, and YouTube. And you guys can find us on Spotify and Apple. Until next time, we will chat with you guys soon. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.